everybody, my loving spoonfuls. I don't know if I can say that, but I just did. I hope you're all having a happy and healthy day today. Happy day 4 of March Makeup Madness. Today I wanted to talk as briefly as possible about the new Sephora Pantone Universe Correct and Conceal palette, and this is the light medium palette. I did today order the medium to dark palette, and I will review that as soon as I have it, so stay tuned for that because I do think this palette doesn't have a great range of shades, which is one of my cons for it, but stay tuned for more on that. This palette does retail for $49 at Sephora and Sephora.com. I don't know if this is out in stores yet. When I went to Sephora on Monday and I picked this up, I had to ask specifically for it because they were, I guess, installing a whole comprehensive computer thing where you can find out what shades you should use and whatnot. They had to ask like all the managers and whatnot if I could actually buy this, and they finally said yes, so I have it. And like I said, I did order the darker one today. I'm really hoping that covers more of the medium shades because I don't feel like this covers very many medium shades. I would call this more of a fair to light palette with maybe a few medium and even dark shades thrown in. But I'm really hoping the medium to dark palette kind of compensates for that and brings it all together as a coherent collection. So I already did pre-swatch these shades on my arm so you can see them. The top 7 are the corrector shades, and I drew a line there. And then the bottom 8 are the concealer shades. So there are a total of 15 colors in this palette, and each pan is 0.04 ounces, which comes out to a total of 0.6 ounces for the entire palette. So just as a comparison, the Viseart Corrector Camouflage palettes are 0.84 ounces total. So there are 12 pans in here and a total of 0.84, and there are a total of 15 pans in this one for a total of 0.6 ounces. Just as a quick little talk through, this is the box that it comes in, and you can see it has kind of the traditional Pantone squares on there. On the back, it has the shades, this little black line separates which shades are the corrector shades and which are the concealer shades, and it tells you that at the top. Each shade also has a Pantone color number and a name, which is inconsistent because inside the box there's also this booklet which only uses the Pantone color numbers and not the names, and I really wish they would have just picked one or the other and stayed consistent because I don't really like having multiple names not listed everywhere. With the Pantone numbers, I don't really know what they all mean, but I'm sure there are people who do, so maybe they should have just stuck with that rather than trying to give them names just on the back of the box and not in the palette and not in the booklet. That's a minor con for me. Now the booklet itself is actually really, really good. On the one side is English and the other is French. The first page of this, or fold out if you will, just gives the rundown of the shades and what each one does. And again, this is just listed with the Pantone numbers and not the names that are on the box. So yeah, again, I don't really like that. And then on each page, you have a specific skin concern that you would color correct or conceal for. This one is dark circles. And then it will tell you for fair skin, light skin, and medium tan skin, which colors you should use in the palette to correct that problem. So I think that's really helpful. And then there's also one for redness and hyperpigmentation. And then finally for dullness and brightening. So I think as far as booklets go in palettes, this is probably the most helpful I have seen, and I really like it. The palette itself comes in this nice white, pretty sturdy little case, and it has your information on the back. This is made in the United States. Inside, there is this little clear plastic sheet that goes over the shades that just shows you which shades are the corrector colors and which ones are the concealers, and it also tells you what each shade is supposed to achieve. So I like that as well. Again, I wish they would have either put the numbers or the names on here just so you would know. I don't know, they're throwing out way too many numbers and names, and I just wish they would have been a little bit more consistent. Inside you have a big mirror. This mirror does stand up on its own and you can adjust it to where you would like it. That's a nice feature. Another good thing about this palette is you can see the corrector shades are very good on the skin and they do work very well. I have been using these since I picked this up on Monday, almost exclusively on my face as a corrector for my dark circles and my under eye bags. In fact, today I woke up with hives all over my face, which I'm worried is from the antibiotic, but I did have to color correct for that, and I think it does a pretty good job. And also, your regular makeup does cover these colors very well. Today, in fact, I did just use the Etude House Any Cushion, so that's just a light cushion foundation, and it still covered the color correction pretty well, I would say. Now, one issue I do have with this palette is that these shades, the concealer shades, do appear darker in the palette than they do on the skin. As you can see, compared to this, the only really kind of dark shade in the palette is this color, and I will run through the colors with you at the end. And then this is kind of the only real, I would say, medium color in the palette. They seem all kind of fairly fair to light to me as opposed to medium. And I do kind of have an issue with that because there are a lot of people with medium skin tones, so I really hope that is covered in the darker palette. But then again, there's a lot of people with darker skin, so I hope they don't kick out the darker shades in that one. So we'll see. I will do a review on that when it comes in. But you can see that these shades are pretty light for the most part. And I am, just for reference, in Cover FX, a G30 to G40, so my skin does look lighter than it actually is. Another issue with these is that they are very creamy, so that can be good or bad. They do crease, so I would recommend using an eyeshadow base right under your eyes or wherever you're going to color correct or conceal. And I did use my glitter glue today, both on my arm and on my face, just because it does help with some of the creasing issues. Another thing about these colors is that they do dry fairly quickly, so you want to work with them fairly quickly so you don't end up with like light patches or darker patches on your face. But I would say really the highlight of this palette is the corrector shades. I feel like they are really spot on and they do a very good job at whatever correcting they are supposed to do. And again, it tells you in here what each shade is meant to do. I'll go through them with you. The pink is supposed to brighten. Then the green under that is to eliminate redness. The purple is to eliminate dullness. Then the next row, that first salmon color is to eliminate dark circles and dark spots. The one under that is to eliminate dark circles and dark spots. And then the yellow is to eliminate redness and purple tones, and I have also used that. That works very well also. And then the final color corrector shade, which is also a salmon color, neutralizes dark circles, and I can say all those shades do function the way they are supposed to, and they work very well. And again, they are easily covered by makeup, so that is definitely a bonus. So just really quickly, I'm going to run through the names, not the numbers, because they're very convoluted and long, and yeah, my eyesight is suffering greatly. The first one, which is actually the light pink, but it looks almost white on the skin, is called Pale Dogwood. Then the green is called Laurel Green. The purple is called Lavender Fog. Then we have the salmon, which is Rose Dawn. The lighter salmon under that is called Dusty Pink. The yellow shade is called Impala. And then the final color corrector shade is called Muted Clay. And then on to the concealer colors. The first one, which it looks cooler tone to me, is called Amber Light. And then the more yellow-based shade is called Apple Blossom. The one under that is called Pink Sand, and again, that looks more cool toned. And then the one under that, which looks more yellow toned again, is called Maple Sugar. And then there is that one standalone dark shade in here, which is called Camel. And then that kind of caramelly color is called Sandstorm. Under that is called Macaroon. And then finally, Indian Tan. Another issue I have with this palette is that nowhere does it specify if these concealer shades are warm toned or cool toned, and I know you can kind of tell from the palette and especially on the skin which are which, but it would just be helpful if you didn't have to try them out, and if somewhere in the packaging, on the box, in the leaflet, with all the pages in there, or the fold outs, whatever you would like to call them, it told you which shades were warmer and cooler, just so you didn't have to experiment, especially if you're trying to use this and running out the door or whatever. I again feel that this palette is really worth it, just if only for the corrector shades, because they are so spot on and they really work very well for their various purposes. The concealers are kind of hit or miss, I think. I would consider some of those shades light. Maybe those last four could be considered medium, but they are, with the exception of this color, fairly light and all shades that I personally could use. I do feel, again, they should call this the fair to light palette rather than the light to medium, just because the shades do tend to be on the very light side. And even with some of the corrector shades, you can see they look almost white on my skin. I do like the consistency of these. Again, you do have to work with them fairly quickly, and they are very creamy. For me personally, I have found that this works pretty well, and it has a lower learning curve than the Viseart palettes. It's a little easier to use. The consistency is more like a traditional concealer than the Viseart consistency. You do kind of have to go through some trial and error with this at first just to see what works for you. And again, I think it would be more helpful if they listed somewhere in here which shades are warm tone and which shades are cool tone, because they do not, and you do kind of have to experiment to see what works for you personally, because the shades do not really show up the same on the skin as they do in the palette. So that, in conjunction with the fact that there are so many different names and numbers for each of the shades, I feel is slightly problematic and are minor cons, but I don't know that that's necessarily a deal breaker or deal breakers for me for this palette. I still think this is worth the $49 and worth buying. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions about this palette, please leave them below and I will gladly answer them. If you have any comments about this, please leave your comments below as well. If you have picked this up, I would like to hear from you and what you think about this. And if you have the medium to dark one, how it is working for you. And if you have found that the shades are lighter than they look in the pan as well with that palette. And again, I should have mine in a few days and I will do a review on that as soon as possible. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a big old thumbs up as always. And if you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe, because I am doing a video every day in March. And in addition to that, you are eligible as a subscriber to enter my 6 giveaways, and I will link my official giveaway entry video below, and I will also leave the link to where you can buy this at Sephora below, so check that out if you are interested in picking this up. I hope you're all having a happy and healthy day today, and as always, thank you so much for your time, support, and for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow for March Makeup Madness. Have a great one, everybody. Bye!